Hi, everybody. I'm Jacqui Lewis, and this is Love, Period, a podcast about how we're going to love ourselves, love our posse, and love the world fiercely on the way to making our lives and the world better. Today, my guest is Aunjanue Ellis. I don't know if there's a movie you've seen that you love that she isn't in. Her credits are prolific. More important than that, she is an activist who helped to get that Mississippi flag down. Y'all, you're going to be so surprised at her personality and her commitment to justice as she mentors us about how to love the world better. Aunjanue Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Thank you for coming to talk to me.
Now I have the giggles, the whole thing.
It's
Sorry.
Good. It's good. We need to laugh. It's good to hear your voice, love. Are you in Mississippi? Where are you in the world? Are you at home?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Mm-hmm, I am. Mm-hmm.
Good for you. I know you've been traveling a lot.
I have been. I've been away for a long while. But before we go any further, I do need to ask how you are. I know you have suffered a huge trauma, and I would know it was traumatic for me. You know what happened with the church. So I just want to know how you are doing, and how you are coping, and how the congregation is coping. And
yeah, it's been a hot mess. It's been really tough. It's kind of shocking, when you see the site, you think, oh yes, there was a church there, and now there's a facade. There was a building to the north of us, and now that's a demolished lot. The center of the church, Aunjanue, the sanctuary is scooped out, but there's a lot of rubble and ash. The social hall, that room back there before you come in the church with the dome, is gone. And they've built a wall between the sanctuary and the church house to keep it, dry as they can. So that's been hard. I'm not kidding. It's been really hard. And some days I think it feels like we're in like one of those disaster movies, and some big animal took a bite out of the church.
Right.
But to be also seriously honest, every day I'm in 99 meetings about the fire, but every day people write, call, text, follow us, and say, your church means so much to us. I got married there. I came to the concert. I came to the training. I did a 12-step meeting. My kids used to go to the, after school. My mom and dad used to live around the corner. Aunjanue, I'm thinking about the things I'm finding in the fire. That people just love us so much. They love us so much. It's just amazing. Grace. Love communicated with such consistency and celebration and kindness, generosity. It's been amazing to feel that kind of love from people who you didn't know knew you existed, Aunjanue. Right? So there's something good about that too. So nice.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to hear that. And I would hope that you would, feel that way, because it certainly reflects, my feeling about middle and how it became, because I sort of, finding a church in New York was very, very hard. It was, I was not successful at it. I would go to First Corinthians in Harlem, and I loved that experience. But, up until that point, as many churches as there were in Harlem, I probably went to a good 40% of them. And I never found really, a place where I felt comfortable. And then Genesis invited me to come to Middle, couple years ago when I was there working. And it was just such an inviting place,
Yeah.
Just an inviting place. So I'm glad to know that you feel that.
I really do sweetie. And I feel like just what you said, that people find us and then they keep us. Like they find us and they keep us. Your work takes you away, and we're still your people, and people have a woman from New Zealand named Janice, came to church when she was here working in New York, and then she moved back to New Zealand, and she's, connecting to us and sending a donation our way, and just Beijing, China covered the fire. What? Why? So tell me a little more, love. I'm thinking some Tina Turner song right now, like what's love got to do with it? Can you talk a little bit about how you experience love at Middle Church?
Well, I think coming from the experience that I came from a traditional Baptist church, worship experience. Mm-hmm. And all of that, everything that came with it, the attended culture of that, which quite frankly was an extension of what we learned in Bible school, what we learned in Sunday school, in terms of how it affected me. My essential self was called into question every time I would go to church. Mm-hmm. I don't know how else to say it.
Yep.
Before I found Middle, I had worked on that, had been in process of working on that for a long time. Yes. So I was in a good place. But when I came to Middle, you mm-hmm. saw all of that stuff that I knew was possible mm-hmm. in a worship experience mm-hmm. was actually in front of my face, was active, was a practice. That was my first experience with that, where being queer and women being in positions of power and, and not being patronized and condescended to and mm-hmm. sidelined and marginalized and all of that stuff that, drove me crazy as much as it made me, it made me, it made me right. and unmade me.
Yes.
So, Middle was in many ways the stuff of my imagination that was really realized. I really appreciated it for that. And then the other part of that is I come from a background where my family was very, very politically active. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, and I don't know why this happened, but for some reason, after I would say, I don't know, I would sort of say after my grandfather passed or whatever. I'm just trying to find a point of transition. Mm-hmm. There was a very sort of, hard pivot from that kind of political engagement and the church experience, which was so much a part of the 60s and early 70s right. in Mississippi and in the South. That's what it was. It was a place for that, the home for that. And suddenly all of that just disappeared. Huh. It just disappeared. And then, I was looking for that. Mm-hmm. That had become hard to find, extremely hard to find, no matter where I went. Went to church at Jeremiah Wright's church, but I was only there a couple of times. So everywhere that I worked across the country, around the world, I was mm-hmm. looking for that. I was looking for a place that I did not have to pretend that what was happening in the world did not affect our spiritual lives, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I sort of felt that there was developing paradigm, a developing practice where there was the political life and your spiritual life, and never the twain shall meet. Mm. And so mm-hmm. Middle again was a place where there was a convergence of that. And it was a sort of like a holistic approach to the life of a person in this world, that you cannot separate those two, because, one feeds the other, one affects the other. And so as a minister, which is what you did, you spoke to all of that. Mm. And I just appreciated it so much. It was so affirming, Yeah.
Sweetie, that's so good. I love the way you said that. Before I say more, remember when we were outside in DC in the big crowd and we saw each other? Do you remember that? That was crazy. Like, how is it possible? Aunjanue, like, of all of those sea of women, was that for Kavanaugh, right? And there you were.
Yes.
And then we got to march the rest of the way.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. It is interesting. I was so beautiful.
Crazy.
Yeah. And then we did the thing down in the village together. It's interesting to me, love, that church should help us. Like the word religion, really in its root is like to bind, like to religate, to rebind, to bind things together. I feel like religion in its purest sense should bind us, to love ourselves, to love the world, and to love the holy, however we imagine it, right? However we imagine it. But instead it feels like a lot of time religion wants to make sure you don't love you. Like there's something wrong with you. So come in here and we'll try to get you to the place where you can love you. But you as you are is not good enough. And we're in the business of sort of proving to you that you're not good enough, that you're a worm, by my Protestant upbringing, you're a worm, you're not worthy, humankind fell down, Eve did it, and the rest of your life is about trying to find the way to feel good enough to love yourself. So Aunjanue, did the church, I watch you in the world, and I think this sister really loves herself. I watch you working, and I feel like you radiate this confidence, right? Do you ever not love yourself? Do you ever love yourself? Am I right about the church having a role in how we feel about ourselves, or religion having a role? Talk to me. Just tell me what you think about that. How do we get to love ourselves? And what's God got to do with that?
Right. Well, it goes back to this idea that I spoke to earlier about church making and unmaking me, and me having to fight that unmaking and make myself whole again. All of that stuff that I learned that was wrong with me when I was, growing up. Those things. Number one, being a woman. That was what was wrong with me.
Yeah, that's what's wrong.
And then being a queer woman, and having there was no support in that. You know what I mean? Like there's no support in that nowhere. And that, you from Mississippi as well.
Yeah,
so there's no sort of template for being a queer woman in the South who also engages in the church in a full whole way, and not feel like there's something perverted about you.
Yes,
do you know what I mean? And this whole idea of hate the sin but love the sinner. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, I do.
and God will love you anyway, and God, all of that stuff. And that is you're at war with that. And particularly someone like me who was in church 4 or 5 times a week at minimum every day of my life from the time I was 3 years old until I was 18, and I left to go to college.
Wow.
So that is some intense unlearning that you have to do. And then you have to get to a place where you feel like, I have to unlearn that. You go for a long time. You have to leave Mississippi. I don't know how else to say it.
No,
but
that's
I had
right.
to.
Yeah.
I had to leave Mississippi. I had to see other lives lived that weren't condemned to hell. Or didn't live didn't live in that condemnation, because I lived in that condemnation. I lived in that, in a place of when I don't know what grade I was in or about to go in what grade. And I spent the whole summer trying to convince myself, or trying to teach myself to be attracted to boys. Like the whole summer I spent doing that on my own, Because of course I couldn't tell anybody in my household that that I liked girls. Like, I couldn't, there was no one to talk to. Nobody. So I spent the entire summer trying to convince myself that I was attracted to boys and that I was normal, that I could be normal. So this was a battle. This was a battle. And the battle didn't end, for a very, very long time. It's only been in the last few years where I have been at a place where I could just accept myself for who I was. But see, the other part of this is that I tell people all the time, and this is an old adage in the church where we say all the time, I wouldn't take nothing for my journey. Right. And I mean that. I wouldn't take anything for my journey. I would not have wanted, I would not have traded what I've learned about community, the example that my grandmother set for me in terms of being who she was to the people in her church, to the people in her community, which was all about care, all about taking care of people who did not have what she had. I mean, my life was spent with her, going house to house, checking on the sick and shut in. You know what I mean?
Yes,
that's that's and shut in idea. You know what I mean? That's what I grew up with.
Yes.
That's what you do. You take care of people. You take plates to people who don't have food. And there were no drives. You know what I'm saying? Right. There were no hunger drives. Yeah. It was just, you know what I mean? Like,
you take your groceries down the street.
There was none of that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I understand.
Yes. And you taking tomatoes to people. You taking, and some people are bringing them to her because that's what we did in order to ensure our survival.
Yes.
And it was not spoken. It was just what we did.
Yes.
And I would not trade that for anything. Even though I had to battle it at the same time, but I would not trade it for anything. And then what God is, and my understanding of what God is, what I do know is that what I have been taught about God and what God is, I cannot accept. Yeah. I will not accept. I don't believe that the Bible is the only testament of God's existence.
Amen.
So, it's multi-layered. It is complicated. What I'm at peace about, because that's, I bandied, atheism and all that kind of stuff for a little while. I did all of that. But what I'm at peace about is I know, for me, the testament of God, whatever God is love, and it is the survival of Black life. Ooh. And so when I come into a place of worship, no matter where I am, it is an act of celebrating, affirming Black life. And I know that I need that. Yes. I know that I need to sit down on Sunday mornings and sing with other Black folks. I need to do that. Because I think it's this whole idea of I don't feel no ways tired. Like all of that. Yes. I need that. Because without it, I've tried it. And it doesn't work for me. So I need that.
You are.
In Middle, there's a lot of white people in Middle, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But it is still rooted in what I understand about communal affirmation.
Yep.
That I understand about Black survival.
Yep.
And Black love.
Love Period will continue in a moment. I listen to you and I feel if it isn't God as love, then it's the wrong thing. Like there's lots of texts in the Bible. There's lots of ways to think about God. There's lots of testaments about God, as you say. I think the truth that put me in ministry, that keeps me in ministry, is God is love. And honestly, Aunjanue, I think I've said this to you before, but I outgrew this other God a long time ago. Like, I outgrew God that didn't speak many languages. I outgrew God who couldn't speak Islam and Judaism and Buddhism and nature. If the God I keep working for is multivocal and can be experienced at the ocean, and can be experienced in the sky, it can be experienced, honestly, in a great meal with friends, laughing and telling good stories. That sense that wherever two or more of us is gathered, I don't think it matters where. And I think we are singing good songs, and I think we might be singing good songs outside on the street, marching. Ain't nobody gonna turn me around. So yeah, and the other stuff is, to me, gets in the way. And I'm not saying that it's not helpful. It is helpful to have ethical instruction. It is helpful to think about what is just and good and right. It is helpful. What's not helpful is I have set up rules and regulations that are designed to keep people out of God's love. That's not helpful to me. So I don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. I think if God is God, then God's intention would be for every child, no matter what color they are, no matter their circumstances. You didn't pick being born in Mississippi, and I didn't pick being born to Mississippi parents. We didn't pick being chocolatey brown people. A girl in China doesn't pick that. So why, what kind of people think a girl in China is going to go to hell because she wasn't born in a Christian family? That's crazy. I think that's a little crazy. So I love this conversation just about the need, the constructs that create, I would say the constructs that create self-love are the same constructs that create love of neighbor. That edict, love neighbor, love self, right? Like, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love your neighbor? And if the construct of religion makes you hate yourself, then it kind of actually disrupts the other part, right? How are you gonna love your neighbor if you're taught to hate yourself? That's a little bit wonky.
Right.
Yeah. So let me just ask this question, beautiful Black queen of the world. What's going on with people right now that are like fascist haters? Why is the world on fire with such bigotry and xenophobia, and the idea that unless you look like me, you're not, I'm supposed to, what's your analysis of why it feels like people have circled up their wagons and the only people that they want to turn some love on are the ones that think like them and look like them? Am I overstating that, or does that feel right?
Oh, no. You're not overstating that. I mean, Mississippi is a teacher, and it is a microcosm for the world. I grew up with that, still very much alive here. One of my friends said that, Mississippi is the petri dish from which, Trumpism was, born. People didn't pay attention to it. We slept on it for a long time. Now we see the results of it.
Yes,
now we see what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps it has something to do with what you just said. It's like, if you grow up with that kind of self-hate, like, how can you love someone? And, a lot of these folks are evangelicals. They're evangelicals.
That's right. That's
right. And so much of that is rooted in, is articulated through shame.
Right. Mm.
It is so much of that language and doctrine and orthodoxy is rooted in and articulated through shaming, not just shame, but shaming.
That's right.
That ethical instruction that you alluded to. That's all it is. That is all it is. And I feel that it's an incomplete doctrine because they don't talk about racism. You know what I mean? You go in there, I've been in these churches, they don't talk about racism. They don't say that racism is a sin.
No
they don't say that. They say everything else is a sin. Adultery is a sin. But they do not say that racism is a sin. They don't teach that. They don't teach that at all. So what's the result? You know, so what's the, I believe that how can you, I believe this, if we want to tell young men and young women, don't be violent, but we don't teach them not to be violent. So but we teach them other things, right?
Right.
We teach them other things. We teach them math.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We teach them, we all kinds of stuff we teach them. But we don't teach them about, you know, social behavior that could end someone's life or put you in jail. We don't teach that. And I believe, you know, I'm talking about that's schools, but in terms of like the church experience, that is as valid. That is as valid. If you want something from your congregation, you need to teach it. If you don't want them drinking, you tell people don't drink. That's what they do, right?
That's right.
But they don't tell them to not hate Black people.
That's right.
They don't do that.
That's right. No, that's right. And,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Basic.
That's basic. Yeah.
That's morality to me. That's morality to me. That's what morality is to me. And they're not taught that. They're not taught that. They're not taught to think that they are equal, you know, that Black people are equal to them.
Yeah.
They're not taught that women are equal. You know what I'm saying? That's not taught. Because so from jump, it's not something that they've learned. They learn that you shouldn't abort babies.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But they don't, you know what I'm saying? That's morality to them.
Don't abort babies, but you don't need to value Black lives. I was talking to Robbie Jones a little while ago, this guy who runs a research company, and he's a Baptist minister and white from Mississippi. Aunjanue, he shared our Mississippi heritage.
Wow.
And he was really talking about how white people, the white church, you know, he goes all the way to like the white church period, just does not value that kind of ethical instruction that puts down its privilege, right? That puts down its privilege, that says, that accepts. And to be honest, I think, sometimes I feel like I want to say, okay, white people who say you're Christian, the person you follow in the world is not white with blonde hair. Let me disavow you. This is a Jewish, by the way, don't be anti-Semitic, Jewish, poor, baby born, you know, in a scandal to an unwed mother who was raised in Palestine, who was a refugee, who passed for Egyptian, I'm trying to say, since he could hide out in Egypt. So brown, the Jews are Afro-Semitic people. Like, what would happen if they didn't think Jesus was white? Then would they teach each other to lay down racial prejudice? I just wonder about that.
Right.
And, you know, there's going to be some really nice white people listening to this podcast because, you know, I always tell you I'm on the white people tour. I'm on the nice white people tour in my ministry to help convert nice white people to the revolution and to the liberation and to say, hey, nice white people, I know you don't mean any harm, but let me just help you think about how you can't really hold racism and Jesus in the same hand. It's too crowded. Racism. If you have racism in your hand, you can't really put your hand on the plow of the gospel. It's just too crowded there.
Right. You can't do both.
You really can't. To love God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself, is to think about what your neighbor needs. I'm going to say this too long. I'm going to try to make it quicker. But like the rabbis will say, when you love your neighbor, when the rabbis, first of all, the Jews will say, only one time in the Hebrew Bible does it say, love your neighbor. The rest of the time it says, love the stranger, right? They got one love your neighbor, and they got like 36 love the strangers. And you say, what do you mean? Just like the rich man asked Jesus, who's my neighbor? The rabbi question is, well, what does it mean to love the stranger? And they say, if you love the stranger and the stranger's your enemy, if your enemy's cow comes in your backyard, you have to feed the cow and water the cow. You can't kill the cow. You can't eat the cow. You have to take care of your enemy's cow until the enemy comes home, and then you give it back.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Right? That's a lot of love right there.
Right.
And that's Jesus's people, Aunjanue. That's his people. Take care of your neighbor's cow. Take care of the enemy's cow. Tell me about, you travel a lot in your work, and that means you see the world through the eyes of, like, you're visiting a lot of cultures. When you think about loving the world, is that too much to ask? Can we be global neighbors, Aunjanue?
Oh, I definitely think so. And I think, I love how Fannie Lou Hamer and Ella Baker as well, they both were insistent on civil rights not being enough for them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that they were more interested in and more driven by the idea of human rights.
Mm-hmm.
And so their concern was less about our journey as Black folks in America and the rights that we are denied because we are Black, and more about this idea of who we are as human beings in this world. Mm-hmm. And how do we walk? How do we love? How do we feed each other, particularly with Fannie? She was very, very much about, making sure people were fed. How do we do that?
Right.
And it didn't have really anything to do with the United States of America. It didn't have anything to do with our citizenship in this country. It had to do with our human walk on this planet. So I live by that. And I just think that this idea of, statehood and, countryhood and, it's a trick of the devil. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it's just some stuff that, men made so they can be in control of something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Out of their insecurity. I just don't live by that. I mean, it's so interesting. Like when those folks, the terrorists who invaded the Capitol, when they invaded the Capitol, their Capitol building, they came up in there shouting USA.
That's right. Yep.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
What does that even mean to them? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So will you and I see that in our lifetimes? I don't know. I don't know that. But I think we have to start asking these, bigger questions about who we are, not as American citizens, but who we are as human beings living in, not just on this planet, but in this galaxy, because of the fact that there will be diseases that we as human beings don't have the capacity to heal. That is what we're dealing with right now.
That's right.
I believe that, we had this notion that aliens would look like little green men coming down on spaceships.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But in fact, what it is it is a virus that is taking over our bodies.
Yes.
And we don't have the medicine or the equipment to fight it.
Yep. We have been invaded by COVID.
So
right? Yep.
We have been invaded.
Yes.
It is an alien invasion. We just did not have the imagination. I'm sure somebody smart did, but we lack the imagination to think or to picture that this would be the form that the invasion would come in.
Yeah. That's right.
So what's terrifying, what terrifies me more than the actual virus is how we are so ill-equipped to deal with it. That's what's so scary to me. And I was diagnosed with COVID a few weeks ago.
How are you, honey?
I'm okay. I'm still dealing with stuff that I can't. Okay. I don't know what it is, but I'm okay.
Okay.
And when I was told, all I got was take vitamins.
Take vitamins.
Take vitamins. And I was thankfully, have a friend who has a sister who's a great doctor, and her associate, sort of helped me through it. And they were waiting to see if I would need something that would be that if it got worse, you know what I mean? But it never became a real respiratory issue. I had a couple days of, it being odd and bad, not great.
Yeah.
But, they were going to prescribe things just in case it did go down that road. But, it was just take vitamin D and take vitamin C. And if you lose your taste and smell, take zinc, and I'm just sitting here going I had to go in quarantine, This is during Christmas and the New Year's. No. So this was awful. I couldn't family through a window.
Oh,
it was terrible.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. But I was terrified more than anything on some days because I was thinking these vitamins are not going to heal me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was like, take Zerts, take, and I'm just like, wait a minute, this is all we can do. This, after a year of this is all that you can do. And it's like, well, if it gets worse, we'll put you on this and we'll put you on that. But I'm like, if it gets worse, and it's arrogance, it's our human arrogance and our human naivete, that naivete that we are suffering from right now. And so this idea of citizenship is killing us, literally. This idea of borders is literally killing us.
That's right, right.
And we do stupid stuff like, put 45 in office. Then we are we put ourselves in a position where we can't communicate with other countries because they don't trust who we have in office to have a real conversation between these, states and nations to how we deal with this as, people, as human beings on this planet. Because this is an alien invasion.
Right.
So if we don't figure out that language, if we don't figure out that other practice of being human on this planet, we don't know what's going to happen now.
Right. That's right. Right. That's right. That's right. No, that's right.
We are still surprised by what we're going through right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is what we have to do. We have to think of ourselves as not just global citizens, but we have to think of ourselves as citizens of a galaxy.
Ooh, that's right.
Citizens of a universe.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's so true. In order for us, if we want to survive, it's a bigger demand than we are allowing. We have to switch gears. We have to.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, I think that I love John. My husband would be so happy to hear you say citizens of the universe, the galaxy, which really puts in perspective some of the things we were talking about earlier, Aunjanue, about just religion, period, and words and creeds and the stuff people believe, and it's so much bigger than just us. We are specks. We are stardust. We are stardust, trying to make a way. Trying to make a way. I'm sorry you weren't well over the holidays, and I'm so glad to hear your voice. Let me ask you one more question, honey. Just tell me, if I say to you, here's what I'm sure about love. What are you sure about love? Well,
I know it's healing. I know it heals. Mm-hmm. I know it heals the heart, and it can heal the body sometimes too. It is my evidence of God, and I know what the power of it, as I've experienced through, loving my family and being loved by my family. Mm-hmm. It's the most important thing to me is the love I have for my family and the love I know that they have for me. It's my wealth. You know, Nikki Giovanni said so brilliantly, it's all I have. As I look in things in my house, you know, these pretty pillows that I done bought somewhere, you know what I mean? Like, somewhere I done forgot. I forgot where I got them from. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is all I have.
And it is enough, isn't it? Love is all we have, and it can be, it's enough. Yeah. Aunjanue, that I get to talk to you and giggle with you and hear your just profound, deeply rooted intellect and spirit is such a huge gift this day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you bringing us, you know, come and meeting together that day in DC.
Yeah.
That was crazy because I went to DC. I didn't know that there was going to be any march or anything like that. I was just coming down there. I was just like, I just want that woman to maybe look outside of her car and see my Black face. Like, hey, girl, I'm here for you. You know, like, that's all I wanted.
I remember you said that. You were like, I just had to come. I know.
I didn't know nothing. I didn't know nothing was going to happen. I was like, I'm going to be there. I don't care. I'm going to be there. And then saw a couple other people or whatever. And then I go down and thing. And there with Jacqui and like the legions of women come showing. Oh, it was crazy.
It was so otherworldly. And I was so glad to see you. And then we got to march together. And it was just, that's what love looks like too. You, Aunjanue, saying, I'm just going to go show up and let her see my Black face through the car window. But to turn a corner and find a legion of love warriors. That's what it looks like. That's exactly what it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, love. Thank you so much for talking to me. Be well, okay? Get well, be well, stay
Appreciate
well.
it.
All right, sweetheart. Thank you so much.
Love Period is
Corey Pig, Paul Swanson,
Izzy Spitz, Sarah Palmer,
Jenna Kuiper,
Nicholas Kramer,
and I'm Callista Brewster. This podcast is produced by the Center for Action and Contemplation, which is located in the heart of New Mexico, thanks to the generosity of our supporters. We also have other podcasts you might like. You can find those wherever you like to listen by searching for Center for Action and Contemplation, or visit us at cac.org to find out more about our other programs. From the high desert of New Mexico, we wish you peace and every good.